let's dive in.
Sounds good.
Today we're taking a look at a pretty big change in how the U.S. Army does its training.
Yeah, big changes afoot.
We've got this article here from the U.S. Army Public Affairs Office, dated April 1st, 2025, and talked about an update to Army Regulation 350-1.
351.
Army training and leader development.
Right, the big one.
And this isn't just like, some small tweaks.
No.
It's a pretty big change. I mean, they're rethinking the whole thing.
It's a fundamental shift.
Yeah, I get
The
it.
total reset.
So, what's the core mission behind all of this?
Well, it's all about getting ready for war, enhancing warfighting readiness, but by doing it smarter.
Streamlining.
Yeah, streamlining, making the training process more efficient.
So the Army's basically like hitting the reset button. Right?
Exactly. They're making sure their training is up to date, relevant for the battlefields of today and tomorrow.
And they're not messing around with the scale of this thing. This regulation's getting a huge haircut.
A huge haircut, huh?
Yeah, they're cutting it down from over 250 pages.
Wow.
Down to less than 100.
That's a lot of pages gone.
Yeah, and this all goes into effect June 1st, 2025.
Coming right up.
So, for everyone listening, today's deep dive is all about how the Army is adapting its training to this, crazy complex security environment we're in.
You got it.
So let's break it down.
Let's do it.
The article really stresses this idea of empowering those small unit leaders.
Yeah, those are the folks on the ground,
Right, the tactical formations, the tip of the spear.
Exactly, they're the ones making the critical decisions in the heat of the moment.
And the idea is to give them the freedom to, really focus on being as good at combat as possible.
That's the goal, without all the red tape bogging them down.
Yeah, without all the extra administrative burdens.
Right, because paperwork doesn't win battles.
Exactly. So what are some of the benefits the Army is, highlighting with this change?
Well, less paperwork for one.
Makes sense.
Fewer administrative tasks, fewer distractions.
Okay, I got
And
it.
that means they can spend more time on what really matters.
Which is?
Honing those essential warfighting skills, becoming masters of their craft.
That makes a ton of sense.
It's all about maximizing that precious training time, making every minute count.
Okay, so there are fewer administrative tasks, less distraction, sharper focus on those essential warfighting skills.
You got it.
What else? What other changes are they making?
Well, they're cutting down on the mandatory training.
Oh, really? Like how much?
It's a pretty big drop. They're going from 24 required tasks down to just 17.
Wow, so almost a third.
Yeah, they're streamlining things big time.
And what's the thinking behind that? Why cut it down so much?
Well, they're trying to eliminate redundancies,
Get rid of the fluff.
Exactly, and focus on what's absolutely essential for winning battles.
So what's essential?
It boils down to warfighting, readiness, and lethality. Those are the big three.
And that all ties in with those DoD directives we've talked about before.
Right. It all connects back to the broader strategic picture and the Army's own operational needs.
So we've got these big picture goals, but how about some specifics?
Sure. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Are there any particular training requirements that are, changing?
Definitely. They're giving commanders more leeway in deciding what's best for their units.
Interesting.
Yeah. 6 tasks that used to be mandatory are now optional. It's up to the commander to decide.
So more flexibility for commanders.
That's the idea. They can tailor the training to their specific needs.
Makes sense. And what about that one task that got completely removed?
That's a big change, too.
Yeah, what was it and why'd they cut it?
I don't have the specifics on that particular task right in front of me.
Okay, no worries.
But it highlights how seriously they're taking this streamlining effort.
Yeah, they're really cutting to the bone.
Right. Every task has to justify its existence.
Anything else?
Oh, there's a big one. They're getting rid of the mandatory resilience training and structured self-development programs.
Wow, those were big parts of the training regimen before.
They were. So this signals a real shift in how the Army is approaching those areas.
Yeah, I wonder what the thinking is there. Maybe they're finding more efficient ways to achieve those goals.
Could be. Or maybe they're reevaluating the necessity of those specific programs altogether.
That's a great point. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out.
We will.
So we've got fewer mandatory tasks, more power in the hands of commanders. What else is changing?
Well, it's not just about what they're training on, but how and where they're training.
Interesting. Tell me more.
So they're getting rid of those strict rules about the length and location of training events.
Oh, so no more training must be at least X hours long, or training must take place at an approved facility.
Exactly. They're giving commanders more flexibility to design training that fits their needs.
And what about the location?
Same thing. More freedom to choose the best environment for the training.
So could they like conduct training off base or in simulated environments?
Absolutely. The Army is really encouraging them to think outside the box and explore new, innovative training methods.
So it's not just about doing less, it's about doing things differently.
Right. It's about working smarter, not harder.
It seems like they're really trying to shake things up.
Yeah, they're not afraid to experiment and find what works best.
Now, we've been talking about all these changes, but I'm curious, how does this all fit into the bigger picture?
Well, this isn't happening in a vacuum, you know?
Right.
This is all part of a larger Army initiative.
To do what?
To make the whole force more ready, more lethal.
And how does this new regulation contribute to that?
By getting rid of all the unnecessary busy work, all those non-essential administrative tasks.
The stuff that bogs people down.
Exactly. They're freeing up time and resources so soldiers can focus on what really matters, preparing for combat.
So, less paperwork, more training.
That's the basic idea.
It's a pretty simple concept, but it sounds like it could have a big impact.
It could, if it's executed properly.
Yeah, and that brings up another interesting point.
What's that?
They're also reorganizing the regulation itself.
You mean like structurally?
Yeah, making it easier to understand and use.
So it's not just about changing the content, it's about making the content more accessible.
Exactly. They're restructuring the appendices to make things clearer, and they're putting a big emphasis on warfighting capabilities right from the start.
So they're leading with the most important stuff.
Right. No more digging through hundreds of pages to find what you need.
Makes sense.
So, we've talked about a lot of changes, but what's the ultimate goal here?
The goal is to have soldiers who are better prepared for the real world, ready to face any challenge.
Ready to win.
That's it. And they're doing that by cutting out all the unnecessary fluff, all those requirements that don't directly contribute to mission success.
So more focus, more efficiency, more effectiveness.
Exactly. It's about making sure every soldier is a highly trained, highly motivated, and highly lethal warfighter.
Okay, so to wrap things up, this deep dive into the updated Army Regulation 350-1 shows us the Army's really serious about making training more efficient.
Absolutely.
And laser focus on those core warfighting skills.
The skills that matter most in today's complex battle space.
And that brings up an interesting question for everyone listening.
Dude.
Think about your own field, whatever it is you do.
Uh-huh.
How is the definition of essential skills changing in your world?
That's a good one.
Especially with all this rapid change and complexity we're seeing everywhere.
Yeah, the world's not slowing down.
Definitely not. And think about those professional development programs or training courses you've taken.
Like resilience training for the mind.
Right. Are there any that could benefit from a fresh look?
Maybe they could be made more efficient, more impactful.
Or maybe they're not even necessary anymore.
It's worth asking the question.
It definitely is. So that's something for everyone to think about.
Food for thought.
All right. That's all the time we have for today.